The official brackets for the Big Ten Wrestling Tournament have been released, and every Penn State wrestler knows their respective path, but the reality is still the same. Nothing changes. This Penn State team is going to dominate out in Evanston.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling. Thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show. This is a final opportunity to preview the Big Ten tournament, go through each individual Penn State wrestler's path to a Big Ten title, to a Big Ten championship. So potential matchups, which ones could possibly cause the biggest challenge for Penn State, right? And for the sake of competition, that's what we would like to see, but also which paths are the most realistic as far as everybody advancing and getting as far to get that title. So we'll start at 125, work our way to heavyweight. This is a live show, so if you have any thoughts, if you have any questions, this is a final Big Ten tournament preview, if you will, here on Locked On Nittany Lions. So appreciate everyone checking out this show in advance. 125. Luke Lillidahl is the 4 seed. He will open up. He does not get a bye. Matt Ramos and the 2 seed, Caleb Smith of Nebraska, both get byes in this 125-pound bracket. Luke Lillidahl is the 4 seed. He will take on number 13 seed, Kalen Riley of Illinois. I imagine he wins this one again. He won by tech fall the first time against Riley. Riley comes into this with a record of 4-13. This one's not going to be challenging for Lillidahl, and I expect Lillidahl to peak here. So Lillidahl will move on to the quarterfinal, where I think where he will most likely meet Joey Cruz. Joey Cruz is the 5 seed. Cruz has had a really strong finish to his season for a first-year wrestler. If I'm not mistaken, he is a true freshman, or this is his first year starting for Iowa. Nevertheless, kind of like Lillidahl, but Lillidahl comes in with a much better pedigree, being the former world champion and everything else. So I like Lillidahl's chances both against Riley, significantly against Riley and against Cruz. I think he can at least get a tech fall against Riley, potentially get a tech fall again against Cruz. They've already wrestled before in the Bryce Jordan Center, and Lillidahl just knows how to rack up bonus points, and that's something that's going to be huge for this Penn State team. Again, this Penn State team, like a season ago, they are trying to raise the bar every single time. So bonus points, the way that they score, just how offensively sound that they are, that is going to come up huge here in the postseason. Not only winning as many matches as they can, but how they win those matches. So Lillidahl could pick up some bonus points, should pick up some bonus points in those first 2 matches. So, and then he is most likely going to face Matt Ramos of Purdue in the semifinal. And that's where it gets tricky, because as confident as I am, as much as I think that he has the opportunity, I think that he can do it. I think that he can defeat Matt Ramos. This is, of course, not an easy match. Ramos is undefeated this season. He was actually knocked out by Dean Peterson last season. Ramos was the number 1 seed, and then Dean Peterson of Rutgers, who Lillidahl did lose to this season, but I don't put too much weight into that one, actually. Lillidahl just didn't look like himself. If you watch that match back, Lillidahl's better than that. But Lillidahl, I think, kind of like Tyler Kasak, is going to peak as that true freshman prodigy. You get better as time goes on. It's the same thing with Josh Barr. Josh Barr is only going to continue to get better. I don't know if, now I can't speak to Ramos, but at some point you do reach your peak. And Lillidahl, I think, is going to be hitting his stride. These two haven't matched up before. I am eager to see how Ramos does against the likes of a Nicolas Rivera, because Rivera is actually pretty similar in style, where Lillidahl, Rivera, this is Rivera of Wisconsin. Both of them are very good. We know that Lillidahl is extremely good on his feet because of what he's been able to do at the in freestyle. But it's different. We know that Lillidahl's weakness is It's being on bottom. It's trying to be a defensive wrestler as opposed to an offensive wrestler. And freestyle, I mean, that's why he's a world champion in freestyle. And Ramos is kind of, he's really good at a little bit of everything here. So it's that overall game. but Lilidol's offense is just relentless there. If he can just continue to have that relentless offense, there's no one here that is better than him when it comes to that. I think Lilidol is probably the most offensively gifted wrestler at 125. So that's the path. Over on the other side, he's most likely either going to meet, I would say, Caleb Smith of Nebraska. Dean Peterson's the 3 seed for Rutgers. As far as anybody that could mess up the 125-pound bracket, maybe a Jacob Moran of Indiana as the 6 seed. I can imagine where Moran actually defeats Peterson in that quarterfinal to maybe shake things up. Brendan McCrone as well. We know that McCrone had pinned Lilidol. McCrone is a lot of like these Ohio State wrestlers, aside from Jesse Mendez, are extremely hit or miss. So those are just some other names to watch out for as far as who Lilidol could match up with if and when he reaches the championship. I've gone on the record already. There's another episode where I give my final predictions rather than going through this bracket by bracket. But Penn State has Lilidol at 125, and I think he should make it all the way through and win a title as a true freshman. 133, the path is pretty straightforward, because for Davis, it's the 4 seed. And like Lilidol, you have to go up against the giant in this group. Drake Ayala in this case at 133 for Davis. Davis is going to match up with Andrew Hampton, the 13th seed from Michigan State. I don't think there are any issues here for Davis. Expect him major decision. Davis isn't out of all the wrestlers in Penn State's lineup, he is the one that doesn't necessarily score the most points. So he is a very strategic wrestler. Now, we did see him at times be able to show a little more aggression this season. Depending on the matchup, I won't rule out a tech fall here, but I think a major decision is safe. Against Dylan Shaw. Now, he's going to meet Dylan Shaver in the quarterfinal. I can all but guarantee that one. And that's a rematch where Davis won. Davis won that head-to-head match when he returned. He was in and out of the lineup due to injury and everything. And Davis actually defeated Shaver when he was 70, 75, 80%. So now that Davis is as close to 100% as possible, what does that mean in this rematch against Shaver? I like Davis's chances. I think Davis should get a decisive victory here, move on, and then that's where he faces Drake Ayala. Now, there's the possibility that Angelo Rini of Indiana or a Nick Bazakis of Ohio State happen to knock off Ayala. It's possible. I like Bazakis a lot, similar to Brendan McCrone at 125 from Ohio State, where you don't know what kind of wrestler you're going to get. You're going to get somebody that is potentially could just really just break, just bust the bracket. He could break this bracket up, or he could fall and lose and lose decisively there. But Bazakis has such a hit or miss when it comes to the rest of the competition that he could defeat Ayala. I don't think Ayala has a cakewalk to the semifinal. However, there is a chance that Bazakis doesn't do any of that, and Angelo Rini moves on, and then Ayala business as usual, because he is an NCAA title favorite here. He is an NCAA title favorite. I will say this about the Davis versus Ayala hypothetical matchup, is that don't think that Ayala is just head and shoulders that much better than Davis. The last time that they met, this was at 125, granted, but it was a 4-2 decision. Ayala didn't win by tech fall, major decision. It was close. Davis is a takedown away from winning that one. It's going to be close this time around. And with Davis finally hitting his stride in terms of his physical health, this could really bode well for Davis. If Davis were happen to upset Ayala or get into a matchup where he faces a Bazakis who he did defeat less than 100%. So basically everybody, it's Ayala and Davis in this portion of the bracket where Davis is right there behind Ayala in terms of who are the better wrestlers on that side. On the other side of the bracket, because if Davis does make it all the way to the championship, Lucas Burt of Illinois, he is my Big Ten title pick at 133. He might even be my NCAA title, depending on how the bracket. But if you're going to win amongst this group, it's safe to say with Ryan Crookham out, unfortunately, right? Wanted to see him wrestle, that Bird is probably going to be the odds-on favorite by most to win at 133 here and at NCAA's in Philadelphia. Braxton Brown of Maryland is the number 3 seed. Jacob Van D, who Davis lost to in the regular season, of Nebraska, Pennsylvania native. I've seen Jacob Van D wrestle quite a bit at the high school level when I was covering high school wrestling. And Van D is another one of those, you never know what you're going to get. It is a mystery. So Vandy could go through and somehow make a semifinal and give Lucas Bird a fight, or could end up getting upset by Dustin Norris of Purdue. It will be interesting to see what he ultimately does. I think if you're going to face anybody in the championship, if Davis happens to make it there, it is going to be Lucas Bird. So we got to rattle these off because we have so many to get through. Plus, if you want your comments and questions in this live show, feel free to contribute them. We're going to get to 141 and others here on the other side of this break. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Using FanDuel's live betting feature is great because it'll keep every moment of the game exciting. So whether you're backing your favorite team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, you'll never feel like you missed a chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you'll get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That is FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, a little quicker this time around. Went pretty in-depth with the Lilladon Davis. Like I said, this is meant to be an overview. I said we have a couple comments in here. Zach, Ayala is the favorite by far. I like Lucas Bird. I understand Ayala is the #1 overall wrestler, but again, I don't think he's that much further ahead. So that's my opinion, but completely understand. My burning question is Greg Kirkfleet. Is he going to be able to beat Gable Steveson? I tend to think that Gable will win, but Greg has grown as a wrestler, and it should be an interesting matchup. Absolutely. When we get to heavyweight, we will certainly, but just to kind of, Steveson is in a class of his own. How much the gap has closed from Kirkfleet to Steveson? Is it a little or is it a lot? And it's not going to be enough, I don't think, to get a victory. It's just a matter of what the margin of defeat is because it is so difficult to score a takedown. If Kirkfleet is going to win any sort of way against Steveson, it's going to have to be a boring, really 2-1 chess match. And it's not gonna be exciting. There's not gonna be fireworks. But if we're talking in terms of victory, that's how Kirkfleet has to win. All right, back to 141. Bo Bartlett's the #1 seed. We all imagine here that it's going to be a crash course between him and Jesse Mendez, as it should be. Wrestlers that Bartlett can and should face in his side of the bracket. He could either, if he gets a bye into the quarterfinals. So Grayson Clark of Purdue or Henry Porter of Indiana as the 8 or the 9 seed. Bartlett should win by major decision, maybe even tech fall with this offensive prowess he has picked up later on in his career. Sergio Lemley of Michigan is a 5 seed that Bartlett more or less struggled with, right? That was a close one. Had the riding time point and the late takedown, late reversal, I think it was, to ultimately win. That was a close 4-2 bout. That one wasn't the most convincing, but it's because Sergio Lemley is another one of those wild cards where he can disrupt a lot of things. I wouldn't put it past Lemley to potentially upset a Vance Von Bauer of Minnesota. Really talented. And that's actually someone that Bartlett pinned last NCAA postseason. Von Bauer was pinned by Bartlett last year in March. So I could see Lemley, because he, like I said, complete wild card, could end up being in the semifinal with Bartlett. I still think Bartlett wins there and then ultimately faces Jesse Mendez. And it's a coin flip. I'm more confident that Bartlett can actually win this time around. And I do predict a victory over Mendez ultimately. And it's because of this little change in terms of just mindset, the way he approaches things. Now, Mendez is aware of it, and it's easier said than done. But Bartlett does sometimes have those moments, those tendencies where he does wrestle a little passively. So Bartlett, and that's in order to defeat Mendez, you just need to get that takedown. And I know it sounds simple, but what I'm saying is because there's not this back and forth, you just kind of trade takedowns and points all the way across the board. It's whomever gets the first takedown is going to win because of how stout they are defensively. You are playing with the lead. So that's really what, and that's what we've seen it. Mendez, same thing. That's the formula to victory. Get that takedown and just waste time for the next 4 minutes. On that other side of the bracket, for any other wrestler, Brock Hardy of Nebraska at number 3 could maybe disrupt things, but if Mendez was a vulnerable 2 seed, I would say that, where Hardy could make the championship. It's just that Bartlett and Mendez are so good, and then Hardy's kind of in that next tier. Joseph Oliveri is good from Rutgers as well. That's kind of really the only other names to know at 141. 149, Shane Van Ness gets the 1 seed, Kyle Parko gets the 2 seed, and Ridge Lovett gets the 3 seed. Dylan D'Amelio's the 4 seed. All of those guys are talented. And if it wasn't for that first group of 3, I don't discount a Dylan D'Amelio. He gave Shane Van Ness everything he could handle, and somehow Van Ness still won in that Penn State-Ohio State dual meet. So those are the 4 that I think could realistically win a Big Ten title here. Cannon Webster of Illinois is the 5 seed. That's the thing. I don't. Dylan D'Amelio is not your typical 4 seed. This guy would be a 2 seed if Kyle Parko doesn't transfer in or something, right? And Ridge Lovett's still at Nebraska, but I hope people understand my point is that these guys are NCAA title contenders. Dylan D'Amelio is a solid All-American wrestler. And like I said, he's just not your typical 4 seed. But Van Ness or Parko or Lovett. Now, Ridge Lovett against Kyle Parko, another rematch here. For those who don't know, this actually surprised me. Kyle Parko's 3-0 against Ridge Lovett. So if and when Van Ness, and I expect Van Ness to get to the 49-pound championship, he's probably going to face Kyle Parko because Ridge Lovett, for whatever it's worth, cannot figure out Parko as an opponent. But I know this is different. It's over time and et cetera. Ridge Lovett also, and maybe there was an injury involved or something like that, just doesn't, I don't know. I don't know if he runs out of steam when he gets to the postseason because he absolutely fell off. He was the Big Ten champion, but then when he got to NCAAs, he completely disappeared. So like I said, maybe he picked up some bumps and bruises along the way. But Tyler Kasak got revenge against him. And I know that's the run that he went on, but Ridge Lovett made it clear that, hey, this is just a true freshman. I'm still the vet of the group. And that wasn't the case. So I wonder if that's going to happen again when you face the better competition. Is Ridge Lovett going to be able to keep up this late in the season? Van Ness, I'm fully expecting Van Ness versus Parko, and I think Parko wins. Or excuse me, oh my goodness. Van Ness wins at 149, not Parko. Parko's going to defeat Lovett, and then Van Ness defeats Parko again. And it will be closer. Don't think of that where Van Ness got total domination, probably something along the lines of 7-4. I think Van Ness gets 2 takedowns and Parko gets 1, and then some escape points here and there. Hopefully Van Ness can get a riding time point as well, just to kind of keep that sizable lead. 157. Tyler Kasak's the 2 seed because of the injury default to Ethan Miller. Miller's undefeated, so he's the number 1 seed, but he hasn't wrestled that great of competition this season. Well, he's undefeated, so he has to do something right. I agree. I mean, he's 20-0. He picked up a lot of quality wins along the way. However, it's not this lengthy list of, he must have took down Ja'Cory Teamer at some point. No. Okay, you look at he defeated Tyler Kasak, but by injury default. And then Antrell Taylor, he doesn't have a win against any of those 3 wrestlers. So in my mind, Ethan Miller is not the best wrestler of this group. It's by proxy of, hey, this is how the schedule broke, and you didn't have to face the best of the best wrestlers. So he is a 4 seed, pretending to be a 1 seed in my mind. Kasak gets a bye at the bottom of the bracket. Will most likely get a rematch with Antrell Taylor at the semifinals. I'm confident that Kasak wins this bracket, no questions asked. I think it's either major decisions or tech falls against the lesser competition. But then when you get to Antrell Taylor, when you get to most likely Ja'Cory Teamer, I think that Teamer is the one he'll face in the championship at 57. It's going to be decisive victories for Kasak. Those are your title contenders, the 3 of them. Ja'Cory Teamer is the 4 seed from Iowa. Antrell Taylor from Nebraska is the number 3 seed, and then Tyler Kasak. I don't see Ethan Miller as a threat. Joey Blaze could be one of those wild cards that disrupts things, maybe upsetting an Antrell Taylor, but I don't think anybody gets by Tyler Kasak. It's Tyler Kasak's bracket to lose. And we'll get to 165 quickly and then wrap up with 74, 84, 97, and heavyweight before we go back to break here. 65, Mitchell Messenbrink. This one's easy. If you're not picking Mitchell Messenbrink, I don't know what sport you've been watching all season. I don't know if you paid any attention to college wrestling. Messenbrink is is in line for the Big Ten title, the NCAA title, the Hodge Trophy potentially, with the way that he has just been dominating the competition. Aside from 2 bouts, I think it is, maybe 3. He has tech-falled everybody, whether it's unranked wrestler, a ranked wrestler in a Mikey Caliendo. It is just Messenbrink. There is nobody in this group that challenges Messenbrink, even on the national level. And I'll take that a step further. I don't think there's anybody that really challenges Mikey Caliendo as a 2 seed. If it wasn't for Messenbrink, Caliendo would be all alone and win the 165-pound bracket at Big Tens or NCAAs. Okay, now let me rephrase that. There's Terrell Barraclaw. Terrell Barraclaw, former Penn State wrestler, now at Utah Valley. Those are the only other 65 is just, it's just not that strong of a group. I don't know if that's because of the way 65 is, or if that's just because Mitchell Messenbrink is insanely that talented, and he's going to be at this weight for 2 more seasons after that. So Messenbrink wins the Big Ten title. There are no challenges here. I'm eager to see how the likes of maybe a Patty Gallagher. Patty Gallagher is a 9 seed here from Ohio State. He could win the 3rd place bout. If he was on the other side of the bracket, I would expect maybe potentially Messenbrink and Gallagher, and maybe just for the benefit of the doubt, he defeats a Caliendo. But it's Messenbrink versus Caliendo, again, part 4, part 5, whatever this is, and Messenbrink wins by, at an absolute minimum, a double-digit major decision. 74, similar case. 84, Carter Starachi gets to meet the future of his weight class once he leaves it behind. We're going to discuss all that more, get to 97, get to heavyweight in this Big Ten tournament bracket overview. Finish up on the other side of this break. And today's show is also brought to you by Nissan. We're all about stats here because numbers do not lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by the twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength, the performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. So whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more now at nissanusa.com. That is nissanusa.com. And we get to 74, Levi Haynes, his weight class. Haynes should be on his way to a 3rd consecutive Big Ten title here. As the number 1 seed gets a bye, he could either face Lucas Condon of Wisconsin or Brody Bauman of Purdue. It's an 8 and 9 matchup. Either of them could move on, and then Haynes should defeat them from there. Clayton Whiting, I think from Minnesota, has some potential, and I think he should actually defeat. I like his chances against the Patrick Kennedy of Iowa in that semifinal. So I think it could be Levi Haynes and Clayton Whiting of Minnesota in that semifinal, but neither of those wrestlers are going to threaten Haynes. He basically has a one-way ticket to the championship. But on that other side of the bracket, it's a complete cluster. As much as I respect Carson Harchla, I think Harchla has done very well in this return to action. He's battled injuries throughout his career, so it's been a struggle for just in terms of circumstantial for Harchla, just battling off those injuries. Jackson Turley is a wild card. Lenny Pinto, I think, hasn't really lived up to those standards. He should be one of the favorites. He should be an NCAA title contender, and he's not. Anybody could come from this side of the bracket between the 3 of them. I would not be surprised. I think Jackson Turley is, again, one of those wrestlers when they are on, they are very difficult to defeat. He gave Haynes a battle earlier in the season in that Penn State versus Rutgers dual meet. I like Haynes over Harchla at the title. Do not be surprised if someone like a Jackson Turley happens to sneak into the championship as a 6th seed. I think he can upset Lenny Pinto. It's getting past Harchla, which is going to be the tough part in all of this. And Pinto can win too, don't get me wrong, but like I said, do not be surprised if Turley does happen to win. 184, Carter Starachi is the number 1 overall seed. No surprises here. He should win a Big Ten title here. I'm fully expecting him to. Now, who does he meet along the way? He's probably going to meet Gabe Arnold of Iowa, and we're finally going to get to see that in that semifinal bout. I don't think Arnold gets upset, or he'll face an Orlando Cruz of Purdue in the first round. Remember, Strachey gets a bye into the quarterfinals. Strachey will either face Washington of Indiana or Rogotsky of Ohio State. But then Jackson Smith moves on into the quarterfinal. Jackson Smith's been wrestling for quite some time at the NCAA level, but a lot, again, kind of the similar case that I made for Lillidahl is that better wrestling is ahead for Gabe Arnold. And if I'm Arnold, who has gone through this adversity, who's been benched in favor of a teammate for these big matchups, and at some point that's going to build up some motivation to prove your coach is wrong, prove the public wrong, whatever have you. Arnold's now, no matter what amount of fire Arnold has to play with, I don't think he's going to have enough to defeat Strachey, but when it was close, this went to ultimate tiebreaker the last time he wrestled against Smith. I think he gets decisive victories all along the way, and then when he gets to Strachey, that's the reality check there. This match doesn't hold the same, I guess, the standard or whatever everybody was putting, because all the smack talk and everything, and then he got benched for Angelo Ferrari. This is just another matchup now. I don't look at this as, wow, Strachey finally gets to say enough is enough to Gabe Arnold. That it doesn't matter. Iowa's coaching staff did that. So Strachey will move on, win a championship, but who does he defeat in that championship? It's going to be Max McAnally. Max McAnally of Minnesota is the future, one of the future faces of this 184-pound weight class. Between McAnally, Angelo Ferrari, for Penn State's sake, Zach Ryder, there are a lot of good, and Rocco Welsh could come back and settle in at 184. He's from Ohio State. He's taking a redshirt season. But McAnally he's a true NCAA title contender. If it wasn't for Strachey, if it wasn't for Kakaisen, this is the guy I would choose. I think he could easily finish third at NCAAs. McAnally is undefeated this season for Minnesota. He is the real deal. Silas Allred of Nebraska is just somebody to watch out for. Edmund Ruth had a really good run a season ago at 74. The weight change has not been kind to him. Maybe he's battling some bumps and bruises we don't know about, because that Edmund Ruth, this is not the Ruth that I remember over at Illinois. So this is Strachey and McAnally, a crash course at 84. Then we get to 97. 97, Stephen Buchanan's the 1 seed, Josh Barr's the 2 seed, and Jacob Cardenas is the 3 seed. I do have my slight concerns that because Buchanan's an NCAA title contender, Barr's also a NCAA title contender, and Cardenas is an NCAA title contender. Any of these guys could win or lose, both here at Big Tens and at NCAAs. AJ Ferrari is going to be included in that when we get to NCAAs in Philly. But for right now, there's nobody else in this 97-pound weight class that's winning. Isaiah Salazar of Minnesota, or Zach Bronigal of Illinois. The next seeds at 4 and 5. This is a 3-man race between Buchanan, between Barr, and Cardenas. And the 1 seed is so valuable because Buchanan is so much better than anybody he's going to face at the top half of the bracket. It is a crash course between Cardenas and Barr in that rematch. It came down to a tiebreaker. Barr got the reversal because he was able to outlast him. And I would argue that Barr has the best gas tank, has the highest amount of stamina among any wrestler at 197. Seriously, his conditioning is peak, but it's the technique, or it's the moves that, it's the veteran savvy moves that you pick up along the way. And as a first-year starter, okay, I'm not saying that Barr got lucky against Cardenas, but you have to think about the situation. It's the situational awareness. And if you don't get back to that tiebreaker bout, can Cardenas do enough to defeat him in regulation or in sudden victory when both of your stamina levels are relatively the same? I think Cardenas does. I would lean Cardenas. This is, again, it's a coin flip. It's a 51-49 situation. But I think because Cardenas has been through this multiple times, he was one of the heavy preseason favorites. It would not shock me if Cardenas does get revenge and Barr ultimately has to settle for third. I would even argue that Cardenas defeats Buchanan and kind of shakes up the power structure here. It would not shock me if Cardenas ultimately wins the 197-pound tournament here at Big Tens. Heavyweight, already started to get into it briefly. I want to check in on the comments just again in case I missed anything. I think Gable lights him up at Big Tens, but more conservative of NCAAs. Okay, so good timing with this comment going into the heavyweight section. Bo, but Alirez at Nationals. Okay, so we're thinking Bo Bartlett wins at Big Tens, and then Andrew Alirez. Andrew Alirez had his number on the freestyle circuit. It was a 10-0. It was a 10-0 tech fall. Between the two of them, Alirez absolutely annihilated, but again, that's freestyle versus folk style, right? 133 is much more likely to get to the finals than 125. Interesting. Unlike Davis, Lillidahl has yet to prove he will be able to even keep the match close. He's just as inconsistent as Davis without injury. Whoa. I don't know about that one. Lillidahl lost close to Dean Peterson and lost to Brendan McCrone. I know by pin, but he was up 6-2. That's a learning moment and why Lillidahl only gets better. It's those kinds of experiences, it's those kinds of losses that add to his arsenal so that he's able to go through the postseason like this. Again, he's a former world champ. Davis is not that. I don't think that Lillidahl is unpredictable or anything. He's lost a fairly good competition. Remember, he defeated Caleb Smith of Nebraska. Smith is the number 2 seed. I don't look at that matchup against Dean Peterson and say, I'm not really sure. It looked like a matter of conditioning. Maybe it was just a bad week for him. But Lillidahl, I think he can defeat anybody at 125. But 125 is loaded. 125 is absolutely loaded, and especially when they get to NCAAs. But Lillidahl isn't necessarily, I think he got caught in a bad place against McCrum because he was well on his way to a victory. But it's not like he's losing. Okay, decision to an unknown wrestler, an unnamed wrestler. He tech-falled Joey Cruz of Iowa, who is now the number 15 overall ranked wrestler at 125. So that kind of puts into perspective just how good Lillidahl is. I think it's actually more likely that Lillidahl wins at 125 than Davis wins at 133. Levi's weight to lose. I'd like to see Carson do well this year. He's earned it. Okay, we're all on the same page there. Absolutely. And if Barr wins, does that give AJ the number 1 seed at NCAAs? It shouldn't. I don't think it should. Because, well, let me explain that. Because I wanted to go back to heavyweight. But to explain it, Barr's now defeated number 2 Jacob Cardenas and then number 1 Stephen Buchanan. If you're going based off of, and remember, this is against Big Ten conference competition. AJ Ferrari's wrestling at Cal State Bakersfield. Okay, so they're in the Pac-12. They're going to go through the Pac-12 tournament. He's going to pick up some solid quality of win matters in the end. There's an objective measure. It's not a bunch of coaches and analysts get together and then rank them. No, it's quality wins and then yes, the coaches rankings as well. But Barr's going to have wins over, hypothetically, if he does win at 97, wins against Stephen Buchanan and Jacob Cardenas with his lone loss to Stephen Buchanan, who is the number 1 wrestler. That is enough to get you the number 1 seed. AJ Ferrari does not have that. He does not have that. The best win he could potentially get if he happens to face him is a Stephen Little or a Trey Munoz, and they're 7-9 according to Intermat. So defeating the number 1 wrestler and the number 2 wrestlers respectively for Barr in this case will absolutely get him the number 1 seed, but he has to defeat Buchanan at Big Tens. So let's get back to heavyweight. Please contribute your comments down below and we can get back to them to wrap up the show. But I've already kind of said it, so there's not going to be much more left to analyze here, just kind of explaining, hey, here's what Kirkleet's path looks like. Kirkleet gets a bye. I imagine he'll face a Ben Keeter of Iowa. Ben Keeter is a talented wrestler, but he's not a veteran. And he's teetering back and forth. Is he going to play football? Is he going to wrestle? I've heard that from my counterpart at Locked On Hawkeyes that he actually might go back and pursue Iowa football. So Keeter is just an athlete overall, but Kirkleet is a wrestling athlete. He devotes all his time to that. So Kirkleet will make it to the championship here. He'll probably face Josh Heinzelman of Michigan along the way. And again, Kirkleet won decisively there too. He struggled against Slavakuski of Rutgers. I thought that was interesting. Remember, Kirkleet was ruled out a couple times in the lineup, dealing with some illnesses in the middle of the season. So don't read into that one too much. Stevenson is the favorite, as he should be, overwhelmingly at Big Tens, NCAAs. If it wasn't for Stevenson, Kirkfleet would be in that category. So when these two wrestle, if Kirkfleet's going to win, it's going to have to be an ugly 2-1, 3-2. There's no takedowns. There are no takedowns. And I don't know if you turn Steves, it sounds impossible, even trying to think it through, that, oh, you're going to get a takedown against Stevenson. Oh, you're going to get back points against Stevenson. Absolutely not. That does not happen unless you are internationally one of the greatest wrestlers. And even still, we saw Stevenson win an Olympic gold medal. There's no justification here. It's a matter of a margin of defeat here. Unfortunately, I wish I could give more confidence in Kirkfleet here, but I want to see the gap closed. If this is a 6-2, 6-3 margin, or if Kirkfleet gets a takedown, and this is something along the lines of 8-4, 8-5, or whatever, you can get some points against him, more than just 1 or 2. That is a mass, and it's not a major decision. I don't think he tech falls him. It's a matter of, okay, can you keep it under a major decision? Can this be a 4 or 5 point defeat, or is this going to be a major decision? And then Stevenson is truly by himself. That's what I'm looking for here. I wish I could promise an upset victory or show some confidence. I can't. I just can't. All right, let's see what other comments we had. I was originally on Miller's side because I thought it was dumb to get mad at him for celebrating after he was booed, but seeing him dodge all this good competition just for the seed, it's a coward move. I don't know if he dodged the competition or not, willingly, intentionally, because against Iowa, he didn't wrestle Ja'Cory Teamer. Teamer was hurt. He had the injury default against K-Sac. A lot of it's circumstantial. I don't think Ethan Miller's dodging competition. He hasn't earned that right. He hasn't earned that respect. I don't like that. I don't justify that in anybody's case. But Ethan Miller, it's not like he came in as this freshman prodigy and had these phenomenal postseason runs, right? He's making a name for himself now. And so, because there's that case of, like a Keegan O'Toole, I guess, to an extent, right? That's the rumor, that's the conversation, that's the chatter, that he's dodging competition and saving his strength for the NCAA postseason. I don't like justifying it, but to an extent, O'Toole has earned that right. I don't think Ethan Miller's doing that here. I think Ethan Miller needs to wrestle anybody and everybody to gain his respect. He did pick up a win against Little with no losses on the season. Okay, so back to AJ Ferrari, Stephen Little. And he's a returning NCAA champ. If we're going off of the way that NCAAs are seeded between how many wins you have, quality wins, the coaches' ranks, it's going to be, Josh Barr would be the number 1 seed at 97. That is safe if he defeats Buchanan and Cardenas at Big Tens. He would have to do that. I don't think Barr's ranked number 2 right now. Stephen Buchanan's number 1. So if you knock off number 1, look, Bo Bartlett jumped Jesse Mendez as he should have. They didn't move Andrew Alira's up. They moved Bartlett to number 1, and Alira's didn't even move. Alira stayed at number 3. So there's already kind of precedent in the way that everything is. So that's how I see it unfolding. I appreciate everybody checking out this episode, a live preview to go into the Big Ten tournament tomorrow. We're going to have live recaps after each session, talking about, session 1, session after the semifinals, and then a live show to recap the championships as they unfold on Sunday. So if you're not already, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for these live updates and conversations in real time. Thank you so much for checking out the show. For everyone that contributed their thoughts, please leave a like on this episode, share it with friends and family, and for more conversations around your favorite Penn State teams, including Penn State wrestling, Penn State football, Penn State men's basketball, keep it right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.